The following was recorded in front of a live studio audience at the Studio 21 Podcast Cafe. This is the United Podcast Network.
Welcome to Easy Money, New England.
Oh, can somebody help us here?
We can, because we are real estate and mortgage professionals.
There you go.
It says come in and browse.
That's right. Come on in, listen up and learn.
How long do you intend to browse?
In a short period of time, our panel will teach you some tricks that might make your house buying easier.
You don't ask her how long she intends to browse.
You might not be looking for a mortgage today, but we'll get you ready.
You don't look like browsers.
Are you looking?
No, what do browsers look like?
Yeah, maybe I'm half browse.
On his father's side.
This is Easy Money, New England.
Let's show the lady we're browse.
With your host, Brian DAmico.
Hey, look at us, we're browse. One more word out of you and he gets it, all right? Come on.
Hello, and welcome to another edition of our show, Easy Money New England, where every week we bring you money-making opportunities or money-saving ideas, all in the areas around real estate and investing and anything that has to do with money, right? So today we just got the numbers back. I want to thank everybody for watching our show, downloading our show. Our numbers are going up. So if anybody wants to get in touch with us to do any certain types of shows, feel free to just email me at info@newfed.com. Again, info@newfed.com. And we'll bring on some guests that are going to further help our education and find us ways to make and save money. Today's show is very interesting. Basically, we published a book. It's called Real Estate Riches. Take the first step and buy your first home. And the reason why I did this book really was to take all the years of my experience from really the age of probably 12, but really I didn't really get started till maybe age 18, and kind of pack it all into a book. And it's not so much on how large the book is, because it's probably 40-50 pages when it's all said and done. It's copyright here. Again, it's called Real Estate Riches. And it's the content in the book. So, if you're looking to get into a home and really start to be a real estate landlord or fix and flip, or there's some real principles that, you should know about before you kind of start your journey. So I'm just going to read the back cover, and maybe this will solve, kind of what the show is going to be about today. But, so again, the cover, Real Estate Riches, Take the First Step and Buy Your First Home by Brian DAmico. That's me. Here's how to take the first step to buying your own home and building true wealth. So you've been thinking about getting into real estate, but aren't sure it's for you. You see a lot of people around the country who have made a tremendous amount of money by being a real estate owner and landlord. It's great that you see all this, but you just don't know where to start. So this is where we came up with this book, because I come from a real estate family. I've lived through the high and low times. I own a mortgage company called New Fed Mortgage, which we started back in 2000. And we do this weekly podcast, and, bringing everything together and really, I've learned a lot just by doing this podcast every single week. With some of the people that we've interviewed have been really eye-opening and very interesting. And obviously we like to say there's no such thing as easy money, because I've never found it, and you see everything on the internet. The information age today, everyone's saying how easy it is. You just got to do this. You just got to do that. There's infomercials out there that make it sound like it's just, just call and you're going to make money. It's just not true. So, and again, we always like to say, send me an email if you know some way how to make easy money, because it's just not out there. But I like to share strategies and find ways to win no matter, what the market's doing, right? Because we've seen some major ups and downs, and people still profited in a down market. Sometimes, that's where fortunes are made, is in a down market. So again, I just share my years, and, I'm no guru. Believe me, I'm no guru. And I just sharing my trials and tribulations and failures. If one person found out of, how I failed a few times and they can learn from that, it just gets them closer to their goal quicker. So really, this book's all about getting started on your path to real estate riches. So hands down, real estate is the best investment you'll ever make. You could see it every day. It's tangible. When you buy a piece of property, you're basically self-employed, right? Because that building, you're the CEO of that building. So many people start businesses, and as you probably are aware, most small businesses, they fail within the first 3 years. It's a very difficult thing. On real estate, it's basically your own business. You could do whatever you want with that property. You could find different ways to make money. I know last week we had a show where we were talking about commercial real estate and how you can have different income streams from that property. It could be laundry, it could be parking, it could be different things. So you always have the ability to control that asset, and you can see it. You can drive by it, you can paint it, you can make it look good. It's tangible. And when you invest in stocks, you can't see it, you can't control it. You actually don't know, when the next bust is going to happen. You have zero control. And it's nothing about cash flow, really, with the stock market, unless you're buying stocks that are very high and a return every month. But that's, it's still an investment, right? So you can't control it. So that was one of the things in my earlier on in my life that I said, you know what, I don't want to invest in real estate. I want to invest in stocks. I don't want to have to get a call saying, hey, change my boiler, or my heat's not working, or, I found a mouse in the basement, or something, silly that you have to be responsible for. A lot of no heat calls, a lot of no hot water calls. And I'm saying to myself, well, I can invest in stocks. And remember, this is me back when I was 18. I can invest in stocks and, forget all about all this. And if you put them side by side, real estate is a great way to kind of leverage. Now, you can leverage your stock account, right? You can leverage that. But leveraging, real estate and, the cash flow that you receive from it, I think is the best investment just by going through it for the last, what am I now? 35 years now. So, let's keep going with the back cover. But, the stocks, you just never know, what's going to happen. You have no control. The other problem when I was younger is real estate can be slow moving, right? There's just no instant gratification when it comes to real estate. You probably get that high when you buy the property. You go in, you're like, oh, this is great, fix it up, paint it, but then you lose that high in that action. So when you're younger, I was always looking for action, and real estate just didn't give you that. It was just slow moving. You had one property, and like, what do you do now? What do you do during the day to fill up your time? So that's when you really get into business. And, that's how I started my mortgage company, is I needed action. And wow, did I get a lot of action. If that's what you're looking for, I got plenty of action. So you got to be careful what you wish for. But the mortgage business is very good. It's been good to me. And, but it's fast moving. It's not like real estate. Real estate is an investment class. And it can be very rewarding, right? But you hear horror stories. Everyone hears about how so-and-so made so much money, and real estate's the best thing out there. Well, there's still a lot of people out there that don't know how to do it, and they buy it. They buy a piece of property, they're miserable, and they lose money at it. And I've done it a few times. I've lost a good chunk of change on things because I didn't have time for it. But you don't hear the stories of the people losing in real estate. And when you talk to these people that actually lose money on real estate, they'll say, oh, well, so-and-so makes it look so easy. And it's not easy. They think they're going to buy a property and it's going to be easy. But it's not. You have to have a real foundation before you get started. You have to understand, what you have to do to become successful. It's not just buy a piece of property and, collect money and go to the bank. It's not like Monopoly. It is not even close. So getting into that, knowing this is a very, you get a leg up on your competition because you know what to expect. And again, that's real estate riches. Take the first step and buy your first home. So the other part of this is home ownership has many tax advantages. So right now, if you're renting, that money is not tax deductible. So I know people right now that are renting $1,500, $2,000 a month, not tax deductible. They're not building anything. I mean, I see many graphics where when you're renting, you're just throwing that money right out the window. There's really no value there. I mean, yeah, you have to live and you have to find a place that you like to live in. But if you can find something, with that same type of money, $1,500 to $2,000, and find a house, now you're on your way to, what your goals are. If you want to become a landlord, if you want to be in the real estate industry, if you want to become financially stable. So again, home ownership has many tax advantages and allows you to create wealth without having to pay, the amount of taxes every time you sell. There's different strategies where, if you were to sell a home or sell an investment property, where you can, what's called an exchange for like-minded or bigger properties. well, not like-minded, but the same property as investment property, and kind of defer those taxes to when you actually sell that property. So again, let's just review that, right? So if I had a $300,000 piece of property, it was investment property, and I sold it for $500,000. In this market, that's not uncommon, right? So say sold it for $500,000. Well, I'm going to get taxed on that $200,000 plus all the depreciation that I accrued over the years that I've had it. That's a big taxable gain, right? So again, check with your accountant, but that's a big taxable gain. If you didn't want to pay taxes, you could take all those proceeds, and we talk about all proceeds, go into your next property. So that, say it was a 3-family property, all those proceeds could now go into maybe a 6-unit property. You know, maybe depending on the city that you bought it in, maybe you could find something in a different city that has more cash flow. And because you're not paying taxes on that money right when you sell it, you're building your cash flow. And that's the name of the game. That's what we talk about in the book, is about cash flow. Cash flow is king. And anytime that you can increase your cash flow, you have to look at it, because that's what's going to get you financially secure. So, you know, and let's make no mistake. I mean, there's going to be a lot of people out there that says, don't listen to Brian DAmico, don't listen to his book. I've done, you know, my strategy for 30 years. You know, I have my pension, or I have my Social Security. Well, these people, you know, they just chip away at their 30-year mortgage, and they want to be safe. They're risk averse, right? So I'm not a financial planner. Most financial planners would probably say, oh, I could not recommend this book, because we're talking about leveraging. We're talking about leveraging your assets. We're talking about getting started and finding ways to build equity in your home that you can tap into to create more streams of income. And let's face it, I mean, everyone who has a job today, including myself, I mean, we have a lot of expenses, right? So, you know what you got to spend, you know, especially if you have a family, you know, college education and insurance, life insurance. And, you know, these are things that you'll have later on in life. If you're just getting started and you're renting right now, and say you're a single guy or a single girl and you want to start, right? Well, we're going to get into the first chapter now, because, you know, this is a synopsis of the book, right? So we're going to get in the first chapter. But, you know, now remember that there's a lot of people out there that are very risk averse. This isn't for them. You know, we're talking about ways to aggressively go after your goals. And you can always backtrack. If you have a goal and say, look, I want to make $10,000 a month, this is how you're going to start, and you can always reverse engineer it. And many people on our podcast, Easy Money New England, many people that I bring on the show actually have the same background and mentality of how to build wealth. And it always comes around cash flow. It's always about increasing cash flow. And we're going to have a guest on the show in a few weeks that talks about reverse engineering. You know, what's your goal? And you give them the number, and then, you know, there's coaching around it, how to get there, and everything will be in this book to get you on your way. And BrianDAmico.com will be the website that you go to, and I'll be tapping you into all these area professionals who can help you get to your goal. So again, you know, we're going to be leveraging your assets, and again, this is to be on your way to becoming wealthy. So let's talk about the first chapter. So if I'm brand new, and you know, brand new into investing in real estate, I think the most important thing is to get yourself set up, right? So, you know, if you're still living at home, or you're renting, and you need to buy your first home, you want to set yourself up right, because you want to be able to, you know, build from, you know, some people say, oh, I still live at home, or I'm renting, but I want to buy an investment property first. And I'm saying, well, maybe you can do both, right? So when it comes to the first chapter, take care of your living situation first and buy your first home. So again, just a synopsis, but let's face it, you got to be in the game to win. You got to buy your first property. And what I would highly recommend, and it really helps you get to, and I've done it myself, is buy a multifamily. So your first home, I believe, should be a multifamily. Let me tell you the reasons for that. So when I bought a multifamily, I want to say I was probably a little later, maybe 24-ish, and it was a 2-family, and you know, we did a lot of work to it, and the other tenant was paying for most of my mortgage. It was great. I was basically living for free. Now, I'm not saying you can do that today. It all depends on what cities that you buy in. But when you look at, you know, if you're a single guy or a single girl and you want to buy a 2-family, the benefits are great because, if you know you want to be a real estate investor, but you have no experience, that other unit that you have in your home, or it could be a 3-family, you have 2 other units plus your own, you're going to start getting calls and saying, hey, I need to get this fixed, or, I got a leak in the basement, and you're going to really start building your team, right? So you're going to have your electrician, you're going to have your plumber, you're going to have, who else is there? I mean, Stu, who else we got when you're a landlord, right? So you have you could be pest control. Hopefully that's not the case, right? But you got electricians, you got plumbers, floor installers,
all sorts of contractors.
All sorts of contractors.
Cable TV people.
Chimney
maintenance.
Yeah, today is your Wi-Fi. Everything's got to be hooked up, and what type of value can you give to your tenants that they want to live there? Maybe it's access to a pool or not a pool, or can you add value to create more rental income in your property, right? So these are the things that you'll learn. And let's face it, if you buy a single family straight out of the gate, it's great. You live there. Some people will say it's an investment, but it's truly not an investment, because an investment is things that make you money every month, not things that you spend money on. And I try to have this conversation with many people that, a lot of people will say, hey, it's an investment. Well, how's it an investment if it's just taking money from you every month as opposed to making money, right? So that other unit in that 2-family or 3-family, that's truly an investment because you're getting money every month. And you're probably offsetting your mortgage payment with it, but that's okay. I mean, you're still bringing in money. So it becomes an investment. So, and when you're building out your team, and granted, we talk about this in the book, but, you want to make sure, first things first is you have your team to find this house too, right? So you have a realtor, you have a loan officer, you have an attorney. You want to make sure that team is in place, because when that right property hits, you want to make sure you have first shot at it. You want to make sure that you have a pre-approval in hand. You want to make sure that the buyer of the seller of that property knows that, you're going to be, your offer is going to stand up, right? So you want to do all of that work ahead of time. Loan officers, realtors, attorneys, very important in your transaction, right? So you might be looking, and I know it took me a long time. I mean, I was very depressed. I thought I had a house before the one I actually got, and it worked out that, I didn't get that house, and it worked out much better because I had a much better location. So some things just don't happen, and sometimes it works out better that it hasn't happened. So the one that I got actually worked out better for me personally, and, you can't get caught up on it personally. You can't get in the dumps that you didn't get one property. You just got to keep looking. You got to find them, and you got to act quickly when you do find the property that you want. So after you have that team in place and you actually do find the property, you go into a purchase and sale agreement, you do a home inspection, you make sure that you get a good home inspector. You want to go through it thoroughly, make sure there's no major issues, like a new roof or something like that you'll need, new roof, or make sure that all the mechanical systems are up to date, that you won't have to go through something new right when you get out of there, right when you close on the property. So again, so the first step, get yourself set up, and don't be, don't let people talk you out of your strategy, because you'll have people say, oh, just get a condo, there's no maintenance, or just get a single family. You don't want to live next to anybody, you don't want them to, hear you through the walls when you're yelling at people or anything. I mean, put soundboard, do other things, but don't listen to other people saying you don't want to get a multi, because when that time is right, you'll be able to leverage that 2-family much more quicker than you would maybe a single family. I'm not saying that that's always the case, but it's been the case for me. And when you're ready to move out to that single family, say for example your spouse wants to stop living in a multi, and you want to stop moving somewhere else, it's a good opportunity for you to keep that house, especially if you have no mortgage on it, if you follow the strategies in this book. So if you can buy down that 30-year mortgage and keep on working on that principle, there's many different ways, there's many different ideas through this book of how to do that, then you can keep this property, and now it can be an income producer for you when you move out. So it's not get rich quick scheme. It does take time, but there is a strategy behind it. I mean, if you look at your strategy and say, look, I want to have 10 units, 10 units in 5 years or 10 years, I mean, yeah, it's a slow moving goal, but I'm sure you can find things to be busy on with your work and everything else, because you still have to work, building a career. So whatever profession you're in, you're still building that career. This is on the side getting you ready for, passive income. You want to build passive income and cash flow. And by the time this starts building, maybe your strategy is to start winding down more with your 9-to-5 job, or, getting paid hourly versus more on income, becoming an investor, becoming a real estate investor. So again, not a get rich quick scheme. It doesn't happen that way. I mean, you will hear stories of people fixing homes and selling them quickly. It does happen. Someone found a good deal. Maybe someone had to do a quick sale. They went in, they painted it, they dressed it up a little bit, and they made some money. But they're paying taxes on that money, so it's not like it's, just free money. They got to pay taxes on it. And there's no cash flow after that. They got to find another property. So as you go through my book, you'll understand that I'm a very big believer in buy and hold strategy and not fix and flip. Because the way I do it, it's called fix and flop. Because you have to have time. You should have a trade under your belt. You have to really understand what goes on in that house to make money in the fix and flip world. And there's some people that really do a great job at it. I'm not one of them, and I know I'll never be one of those guys, just by the last 2 projects I've done. And it's not that I couldn't do it, but you have to have time, and you have to be committed to it. And that's what you'll find, that if you can't be committed to something, it's never gonna happen. So again, buy and hold. It's a great strategy. I'm not going to go through the whole part of the book, right? But at the end of the day, you want to have more cash flow coming in than expenses. Pretty simple, right? So what is the income on that property, right? So the rent roll. How much money are you taking in? It could be laundry, parking. You could also bring in some more money that way. But how much money is that investment property actually producing? And then what are your expenses, right? So you go through your expenses, and you'll see that you have real estate taxes, you'll have insurance, you'll have maintenance costs. What you'll also see is, many people hire a property manager. But again, this isn't going to happen on your 2-family or 3-family that you're living in on your first step, right? Maybe you'll get into that once you get to that second investment property where you say, look, I've done this in my own home. I mean, where's a better place to start than your own home? Because you're right there. As long as that tenant that you select isn't very difficult, then it's the best place to do it, right? The best place is to just do it in your home, because you can get your team going. And when that time is right, and we leverage that 2-family or 3-family that you live in, then you can now take that money and buy that true investment property. And that's when you'll decide if there's, what the maintenance costs are going to be, the property manager, if you're going to have one, or if you're going to do it yourself. If you're in the trades, it comes to you naturally. It's just so much easier for people that have a trade under their belt to become a real estate investor. Because, obvious reasons, if you have to do an electrical service and you're an electrician, well, you could do it yourself. You don't have to bid it out and find a huge gap from one guy charging this versus another guy charging that, and trying to keep people honest. And that's why you want to come up with your team early on in your career. Again, plumbers, I just priced something out, 3 different prices, and it was something for architecture, right? Architecture, anywhere from $19,000 for this, for something that we were trying to draw up, $19,000 to $45,000. I would think that's a pretty large gap, right? So you don't know what you don't know, and you have to do a lot of research. But if you're not in the trades, you have to make sure your right team is in place, or there's a lot of work that goes into it to make sure that you get the right person, right? So there's other podcasts and other places where you can actually learn and tap into. But again, when you have your own home, you're going to know your team, because you're going to need to be doing things daily, monthly, making sure that your tenants are happy. So let's talk about tapping into your equity, right? So we just talked about buying your first home, and how we really believe that buying a multifamily will get you on your way. But you're saying right now, well, that's fine, but I'm barely making all my payments now. I have cable, I have television, that's getting ridiculous. A lot of people are just cutting that out and just going to a straight antenna, or however they're doing it. But there's many services now where you can save that, what's like $170, $200 a month is it's crazy. So when you go through your expenses, you want to be. Now remember, there's different things between cheap and there's different things from frugal, right? So I consider myself frugal, not cheap. Frugality is a good thing. You want to make sure you know what your expenses are. You don't want to live above your means. You want to make sure that every month you're making more money than you're spending. It's a pretty simple strategy. No one does it. Some people might say they do it, but it's very simple, but not a lot of people do it. You know, it could be as simple as an Excel spreadsheet. These are my expenses. This is what I make. And you want to make sure that it's not a negative number. And if it's not a negative number, well, at least 10% of that number, I would say more like 20, should be invested. And there's different ways to invest, right? So there's stock market, there's real estate, there's different ways to invest. But you know, you got to realize that your mortgage is really an investment, right? So if you can buy down that principal balance and you have extra money to do that, I believe you should do it. Now, again, you'll have people out there that say, oh, no, you don't want to do that because you can't get it back. Right. So if I have a 30-year mortgage, say I owe $200,000. If I put $10,000 down on that principal, but I need that $10,000 the next month, well, I can't get that back because I already paid down the mortgage without refinancing. And you really don't want to refinance if you don't have to, right? Or if you're getting a better interest rate, then fine. But if you're putting a chunk of money down on that property, a lot of people don't do that because they can't just take it back if they have a bad month. But what I found is, you know, if you stop paying down that principal, you're buying down that amortization schedule. So, you know, in my book, you'll learn, you know, again, Real Estate Riches, take the first step, buy your first home. You'll learn that how to tap in your equity is if you were to make a $10,000 payment or a $5,000 payment, $1,000 payment, all you're doing is buying down your amortization schedule. And you'll see it in the book that you see an amortization schedule over 30 years. And you'll see that if you made that payment, that you just, say for example, it was $5,000. You may have just paid, based on your amortization schedule, 60 payments you would have saved. So from a 30-year mortgage, say it's 360 payments, you now only have 300 payments left because you just bought down your amortization schedule. Now again, this is such a simple strategy, but no one knows and no one does it. And you know, I actually belong to a group called Strategic Coach, and I go to it every 90 days and keeps me on track. And most of the things they teach there, which I follow, is just simple. It's just things that are very simple, but you just don't realize it until you do it, right? So to know and not to do is not to know, right? So again, these are simple strategies, but you just got to follow them. So when I go to my class every 90 days, they just tell me what to do and I just do it. And it's amazing how something that you think you know, but you don't do, when you actually start doing it, you're like, oh, all right, now I get it because I actually do it now. So again, that's just one strategy to tap in your equity, and some people are in place to do that, some people aren't. So there's other ways to tap into your equity, which a lot of people don't know about, right? So there's a company out there called Speed Equity, and I know the owner, Hodge Gill, and it's basically a mortgage acceleration program. And I met Hodge probably about 8 years ago, and at that time it was very difficult to use his program because the equity in America was very low, and getting an equity line was nearly impossible. But today, equity lines are very easy to get. And I'm not going to go into the whole program because you can go to briandamico.com. Should be up in a week or two. We're getting there. And this book should be on Amazon in about a week or two. It's getting there. But you know, if you're watching this, by the time you see it, it should be all set. But again, it's a mortgage acceleration program. I'm not going to get into the basic. I'm not going to get into the meat of it because Hodge does a much better job than I could ever do. But I did a one-on-one session with Hodge, and he could take your 30-year mortgage, and everyone's different. It all depends what you make, what you spend. But my 30-year mortgage will be paid off in 6 years, possibly 5 to 6 years. So I've been using it now for probably a couple years. I wish I started sooner like everybody else. You know, I knew about it, but just never did it. I was just like, oh yeah, I know about that. But did I really know about it? Because if I started when I met him, I would have no mortgage today. Now, granted, I have a mortgage today. You know, there's many different reasons to have a mortgage, right? You want that tax deductibility, right? I mean, mortgages are still tax deductible, right? So, I mean, you have the deductibility. Plus, I leverage my house every chance I get. And that's, some people will say, you know, it's good. Some people will say that's bad. But again, this isn't for the risk-averse people. This is for people that are going after it, and, you know, they know what they want, and whatever it takes to get there, they're going to do it. So again, it's not for everybody, but again, the mortgage acceleration program, if you don't have disposable income and you don't think you can start paying down your principal without being, you know, more risky, then you look at this program called mortgage acceleration, called Speed Equity. And again, you go to briandamico.com, click on the link, and I will point you to the video that really changed my way of thinking about mortgages. But very simply put, you have a checking account, you have an equity line, and you have your first mortgage. And the way that these three things work together is brilliant and very simple, and it's very popular in Australia. I think that Australian people, you know, Australia is the happiest country in the world. This might be why, because no one's holding a mortgage balance as much as they do in America. So very simply put, you know, I know what I got coming in at the end of the month, say, for income. I have my equity line, and I have my first mortgage balance. So whatever I know I'm going to have coming in from my income, I'm going to take that from the equity line, I'm going to draw against that equity line, and then put it towards my first balance. When my income comes in, I'm going to pay off that equity line every month and just keep doing that. And it doesn't sound like a huge savings because it's basically pennies, but those pennies add up over time. And instead of keeping money in your checking account, you're using that money to pay down your first balance, because a mortgage is computed on your average daily balance, and it doesn't get calculated until the 30-day period. So, like, for example, if you make your payment on the first on a mortgage, you're getting charged from that first all the way through that 30 days where your average daily balance is. By continually buying down that, now remember, your mortgage payment won't change, but your amortization schedule will drastically reduce, and you'll be paying it off in a much shorter period of time. So without getting into all the specifics, make sure you read that chapter. I mean, this chapter is probably one of the most powerful chapters that I've learned in my life, and it's how to tap into your equity and create wealth. You know, they're not going to teach you that in school. They're not going to teach you that, and financial advisors aren't going to tell you that, because I think it's against the rules if you're a licensed financial planner to tell people to tap their equity to try to build wealth. You know, they're not going to tell you cash out of your house. Don't do what I did, actually, when in 2006 or 2007, I cashed out of my house dramatically because I was doing so well on the stock market. I cashed out, put it in the stock market, and then saw that money kind of go away pretty quickly. It was the wrong strategy. No one told me to do it. It was my own idea. I wouldn't do it again. But if I did it in real estate and not mortgages, I'd still have that real estate today, and I'd have more cash flow. So that's, you know, the culmination of why, you know, we're saying real estate's the best strategy. If I had that property today, you know, what would it be worth today versus I put it in the stock market and just see it go away? I mean, I had no control. And there's other strategies in the stock market for when the market is going down. You know, you talk about options, put options. You can bet that the stock market goes down. There's always ways to make money, even in a down market. But we're not going to go into stocks today. I mean, I may add some things on my website. Again, it'll be briandamico.com. There'll be strategies for when the market's going down. There'll be strategies when the market's going up. But one thing that will always ring true is buy and hold real estate to create cash flow. I mean, that's really what you want to do. You want to become successful and build passive income. So with that being said, you know, we talked a little bit about the mortgage acceleration program, and I think it's brilliant. And when you go to the site, there's a way to do it yourself, where you could just watch the video, do it yourself, and that's it. Or you can do one-on-one coaching, and I highly recommend doing the one-on-one coaching, because I'm in the business, I'm in the mortgage business, and even trying to do it myself, it was very complicated to me. And I do this stuff every day. So when I did the one-on-one coaching, it really made sense. We went through my plan, and once it's set, it's just, you just got to follow it. So, you know, the software is available to everybody that put in all their expenses. They see all their income, and that plan you can kind of print out, or you can log in. If anything changes, you can always update it. But you have access to the software program, which is, you know, if anyone could pay off their mortgage in 7 years when they thought they were going to be 30 years, I mean, you got to look at it. It's life-changing. It's a game changer. So, all right. So now you bought your first house. It's a multifamily. You're building your team. You are a landlord on those other property units, or maybe one other unit. 1 to 4 family is residential. Anything over that is commercial. So stick with the 1 to 4 family market. Well, what I'm saying is 2 to 4 family, because you want that other unit to help pay for that rent, to help pay for your mortgage. But when the time is right and you get some growth, say you're doing the mortgage acceleration program, or say you're buying down your principal schedule, your amortization schedule, and you're putting extra money down every month, you create an equity in your own home. So once you have that equity, what are you going to do, right? So there's a couple ways to do it, right? So you could buy your first investment deal, right? So this chapter is about finding your first investment property deal. It won't take long until you start building equity in your home. So when that new property comes up, it could be a 3-family, it could be a 4-family, and you know that you want to put, you have to put 20-25% down. You have to find that down payment. So just because you've been paying down your mortgage and you're saying, well, I don't have any down payment because I've been paying it down on my first property. Well, that's fine. There's banks out there that will give you an equity line and a second position on your home, right? So say you need $60,000 for your down payment. You could take a second mortgage, get $60,000, close on that equity line, and you can use that money for your down payment of your second property. Now again, you already have your first property, you're living there. Your second property, you need the down payment. You can get that from a second line, like a HELOC, and you may already have the HELOC open, because if you're doing the mortgage acceleration program, you just want to make sure that you have enough there for the down payment. Right? So, or you can always refinance your first if the interest rate environment is better, and now you owe a lot less. You might be able to shorten the term. Maybe do a 15-year fixed. But again, a good loan officer will kind of walk you through this, and we do have a team of loan officers that understand this book and understand the strategies, and you have also realtors that understand this. So it all depends, right? So it all depends on your strategy, what you're trying to do, but you want to sit down on the kitchen table, go through your strategy. I mean, you could do it through the phone too. I mean, I know everyone's busy, but you really want to understand your options when that time is right for that second property. So some of your options are just to cash out of your first, just do one first mortgage cash out, or that equity line that you got through mortgage acceleration. If you did or not, make sure that there's enough there. Maybe you can just increase the balance, increase the amount that they'll lend you, because you'll have increased equity on your first mortgage. So that's another option. And you just want to make sure you have enough to do that investment. So if I was to take that $60,000 from a second mortgage or a first mortgage, and I buy that second property, what am I bringing in now on that property? It's very important you buy the right property. You want to just make sure that the rental income that's coming in is more than what you're paying out. Let's just say, for example, on that $60,000 investment that you took out of your home, $60,000, and say you make $1,500 a month. Well, that's a pretty good return. I don't have a calculator in front of me, and I need a calculator for everything. But you say you're making $1,500 a month. That's good debt, right? So if I take on debt, but I'm going to make $1,500 a month because I took on that debt, that's called good debt. And people can learn that from the Kiyosaki books, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, or the Cash Flow Quadrant. I mean, this is all stuff that I read when I was, very early on. And it sticks with you because it's true, good debt versus bad debt. Making sure that if in fact, let's face it, there's people out there that say, oh, I don't want to owe $300,000 on my house. Yeah, well, I wouldn't want to either if I had no strategy around that. If I had zero mortgage, I don't have a mortgage on my house. That's great. Everyone likes to be there. But that equity is just locked up in your house and there's no way to get at it and you're not using it. So it's great. You have no expenses. But what if you were a little risky and understand the value of time and money, you took that $300,000 and you say you cashed out 80% of it and you bought 3 or 4 investment properties. So now your home just built you an income of what? $7,000, $8,000, $9,000, $10,000 a month in income. So I would much rather be the person who says, you know what, I want to have a mortgage on my house. I don't want to be the person that says, oh, I paid off my mortgage. Oh, that's great. That's great strategy. But, do you have any other income coming in besides your job, or do you have any kind of strategy that is going to get you to where you want to be let's face it, this world's not getting easier, it's getting harder. And the only thing that's not changing is people always need a place to live. Maybe it'll be like the Jetsons and we'll be up in the sky soon, but you still need a place to live, right? So, that first investment deal is very important. It's going to set you up. It's going to set you up for passive income. And you already have income coming in on your second unit or third unit on your primary. Now you have income coming in on your investment property. So now you're building some kind of, consistency. You know that you can count on, because things do pop up. And that's why it's important. When we talk about risk, it's still important to have access to money because you may have a leak and you may have to do something over in the property or you may have to, there's some horror stories that I've heard that, could have an oil spill, right? And the home could get condemned. I mean, you have to be ready for some of the things that can happen. You could have a fire. You have to have enough income. Let's face it, things are going to happen. And those people that say, oh, I told you not to buy a property, look, something's always going to happen. You just got to be ready for it. And there's insurance for things like this. But you have to be ready, and your place got to be safe, secure, and you got to make sure you're investing in the right areas. But you do want to have that cushion. So equity lines can do that. Having access to cash can always do that. And having equity is always the best position to be in. But again, you want that equity to make money for you. You don't want it just sitting there. So again, we already talked a little bit about 1031 exchanges, but say for example, you bought a 3-family and you're really not loving it anymore. It's not the best property for you. It's done what it was supposed to do, which say making $1,000, $1,500, $2,000 a month, which is great income. But you kind of, you want to get something bigger, but you don't have a lot of money laying around. That's just the way of the world. There's not a lot of money just hanging around because people leverage what they got, right? So if you said, I don't want to buy another 3-family and that I actually want to get rid of this 3-family. Well, you could take that 3-family, put it on the market, and there's a lot of realtors that understand this concept. It's called 1031 exchange. So say you were using these strategies on your investment property that you were on your initial property purchase and you were paying down the equity and you have a lot of equity in this home. Who knows, maybe the market just increased and you gained equity that way. That's a little luck there, buying at the right time or whatever. But, if you could sell that property, and it's not uncommon, today that someone bought a property for $300,000, sold it for $500,000, that you take that $500,000 that you just sold it for and exchange that for a bigger property. So this is a great strategy. I go into kind of how I learned this through a mentor of mine way back in the day, and we've done this with a few people. And we started with I know one of these gentlemen. He started with a 3-family. He got all the way up to like I want to say 36-unit building by just using the strategy. So that 3-family, which was making him $1,500 a month, got him into a 36-unit building by trading it from a 3. Then he went to a 6. Then he went to a 9. Then he went to a 12. Then when that 12-unit, he was able to trade that into a 36. I mean, there's strategies around. Maybe you just want one property. You don't want 10 properties. You can do that. It turns from residential. Remember, anything after residential 1 to 4 units goes to commercial after 5 plus. But it can be done because you have the equity, you have the landlord experience. You know what it takes at this point, right? Because you've been trading, you've been managing. All stuff, it can all happen. It all starts with a goal. So again, you just have to understand what your goal is, and you can reverse engineer what you're trying to do. So, going to the next chapter. This is my synopsis, Stu, right? We're a little bit into it, right? But this next chapter, we talk about breaking down opportunity. So, real estate is a very broad industry. There's a lot of different areas, and you can get confused pretty easily. I mean, I've been in the industry for a long time, and there's so many different things that you can sink your teeth into. But you got to pick one and ride that horse. Maybe you don't want to be a landlord, but there's still other ways that you can prosper and make money in real estate. Here are a few ways that you can find strategies to buying homes, though, right? So if you want to buy a home, they say you want to fix and flip, or you want to keep it for a buy and hold strategy. Again, I say buy and hold. You got to talk to sellers. You got to talk to realtors. You got to see if people are motivated to move out of that home. If they're motivated, you may get a better deal. If they want to close quickly, and you can set it up where it's a cash deal, or you can close quickly based on, you're already pre-approved or whatever it is, you will get a better deal for time if you can find those people that are motivated for speed. a short sale. So many times a borrower can't make their payments anymore, right? But they owe the mortgage company or the bank, they owe them, say they owe them $200,000. They haven't really been making their payments. They haven't been able to. The market may have went down, and that's what's called a short sale. Well, they put it on the house. They put their house on the market, and say they owe $200,000, but the market's calling for $170,000. Well, they have to get approval from the bank that says, "Hey, will you let me sell this house for $170,000 and wipe me clean of my debt?" Basically, they may get 1099, they may not. It all depends on the attorney that they have, but their bank is approving that because that's the market. So many times you can get a good deal based on the short sale area. Sometimes you can't, but it's just another thing that you need to be aware of. Foreclosures, there's pre-foreclosures and there's foreclosures that come up at auction. So there's two different ways of getting. If you get to the person pre-foreclosure, you might be able to get a short sale approved. You might be able to do things like, you can kind of make a deal with them where you could take over the property or the note, but it's really not assumable, really not my subject matter. But pre-foreclosure versus foreclosures, just another way to get a deal. Many people, what you're finding today though is the auctions are much more, the attendance is there. Well, when I used to go on auctions, there might have been 3 or 4 people there. Today, with all the, HGTV and people buying homes the way that they are, it's getting more and more competitive. Another strategy, you could pay for real estate tax liens. So you can go to your courthouse. We had a show on this. I would, if there's something you want to look into, go to the podcast with, the last name was Cohen. You'll see his name in the screen. I believe it was John Cohen. But the tax liens, you can go to the courthouse and say who owes money on their taxes. So if they're not paying for their taxes, you're basically in that, when they're going to tax liens, if they don't pay their taxes, that's basically the first lien holder is the taxes, which means if you pay for them, there's a way for you to get that property yourself just by making those payments on the taxes. You become the real estate owner, and from what I learned, most city halls are different. Every city's different the way that they handle these. So if you want to brush up on this, you might want to look at my last podcast about tax liens. And again, there's infomercials on this, and I personally have not seen anybody do this, but with last name Cohen, he's been successful doing this, and this was in New York. So again, you may want to just look into this, do some education, be educated on that process. And then you have for sale by owners. So the thing about for sale by owners is if they don't think they need a realtor, most of the times they do, because what they do is they put a for sale by owner on the grass. They put their sign up and they let everybody in. And a lot of times someone will say, "Oh, I'll give you this amount of money for it," but they were never pre-approved. And a lot of times that communicated between the buyer and the seller is just non-existent. So you have no communication, and then the deal goes awry. And many times a realtor can get you more money for what that house is worth than just doing it yourself. So there's a lot of benefits of having a real estate agent, and having a for sale by owner. They don't know the industry. They're probably most likely putting on the market for more than what it's worth. But you may want to call on them and tap it to see why they're doing it themselves. See if there's any motivation there to get out of there quicker, and it may get you a better deal. Real estate REOs. These are properties. You'll hear the term REOs. These are properties that are bank owned. So the bank already took them over in a foreclosure process. They own these properties. They have realtors trying to sell them and keeping up with the work that the house needs to be so they can actually be sold. So, many banks have many REOs. They have big REO portfolios. There's many agents that specialize just in REOs, so they do a great job with them. But that's another one that where, you might be able to get a better deal based on REO. It all depends on what that bank wants to let go of that property. And again, we mentioned auctions, but there's many auctions and foreclosure auctions that you can go to. Some places actually just auction it off just as a way to get that property sold quicker, just so they don't have to show the property. It's just an auction, and you can go to the auction and make sure you qualify for it first, and then you have basically 30 days to close on it after you get that property, after you win that bid. So, that's basically our synopsis, Stu. I went through mostly every chapter. The last chapter in the book is goal setting strategies and keeping score, which I'm going to talk about a little bit. But do you have any questions for our listeners out there? If there's any questions on the first, I want to say 5 or 6 chapters that we went through.
As someone who always wanted to invest in real estate but couldn't do it until I had an inheritance some years ago, I would ask, for those who are interested in real estate but don't have a lot of money, don't earn a lot of money, what would you suggest, or is it covered in the book?
Right. So I didn't go into specifics so much because the reason being is, I could have made this book this big, bore people with, how to do it, different loan programs, how to really, basically slice a nickel, right? But what I'd rather them do, and I think it's much more valuable, is to find that right loan officer, find that right realtor, find that right attorney, get their team together. Because today's day and age, everyone would love to put down 20%, right? Because they have no issues with private mortgage insurance, or, their payments are going to be a little bit low, maybe the interest rate's a little bit low, maybe, whatever it is. But when we talk about getting in a home today, there's programs with no money down, and there's programs with 20-25% down. But if you're just getting started, there's two things to look at. If you're looking at people can get homes with no money down. So to get a home with no money down, there's a VA loan. So if you're a veteran, you can get into a home with no money down. The other part is USDA loans. So any rural homes, like New Hampshire has a huge map of USDA eligible homes. So no money down, again, it has to be rural. You're not going to get in a city. So Massachusetts, there's some areas like Boxford, Topsfield, and those areas. If you go all the way down to the Cape, it's also a lot of different areas that are USDA eligible, which a lot of people don't know, right? So, but if you look at like the North Shore area, besides like Boxford, Raleigh, like more rural, you won't find a lot of USDA. New Hampshire, it's a huge area where you can get no money down on USDA homes. So again, no money down USDA, no money down VA. FHA loans really help you get into a home. They're just, it's a government-backed program, 3.5% down payment. As I'm talking about mortgages, let me say my mortgage is, my MLO number is 20400, and our company, NMLS New Fed Mortgage, NMLS number 1881. For all those regulators out there. So, we're talking about no money down. FHA is 3.5% down payment. Now, there's different programs out there today that have bond programs, so you might put 1% down, and, the bond program will pick up the other 2.5%. Or, there's down payment assistance where they'll get involved and help you with your down payment. Ideally, the more money you put down, the better the rate, the better the terms. But USDA and VA definitely take advantage if you fall into one of those things. If your property falls into that, no money down, and if you're a veteran, definitely take advantage of that. So those are things that people don't realize. And even Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, they have programs down at 3% down. But again, if you're going to buy a multifamily, say 3.5% down FHA, 3% down for 3% down, 3.5% down for FHA for a multifamily is a pretty good deal. And then if you go to Mass Housing or the state agencies or New Hampshire Housing, you got to kind of look at those guidelines. But as you can see how my mind's working right now, there's so many different programs, and they change all the time. So by the time you read this book and you are ready, and you say, all right, I want to find a loan officer that knows about all these programs, you want to call our number, 877-NEW-FED-1. You want to say that, hey, look, I read Brian DAmico's book. I want someone that understands this concept and wants to walk me through every step of the way. And we'll tap you into a loan officer, and he'll be talking the same lingo, and he'll be the one that is up to date on all these programs, because they change drastically. Just before I came here today, I was signing up with another lender investor who has a different type of program that's going to kind of open us up with a 1% down payment. Now, I don't know all the guidelines particular right now, but I'm going to sign up with it and take a look at it, and then we'll release that program so people like our listeners can buy properties with 1% down versus 3.5% down. And investment's a little different. Investment property, you're going to put down 20-25%. So that's like the did that answer your question, Stu?
Yes, it did, actually, and just makes me want to read the book more.
Yeah, so I didn't want to bore everybody with all the different programs because that's not what this book is about. This book is about concise strategy and concise, information that you need to know before you get started. Now, there's experts in every different area. There's an expert as loan officers, there's experts in real estate, there's experts in attorneys. You'll also need an expert accountant down the road, right, as you start getting going, and you have to understand the accountant side of things. But with that team in place, even insurance, right? So insurance agencies, you definitely want to have your insurance company. You want to make sure you can work with that insurance agency. Today everything's nationwide, and you really don't have that one-on-one, right? So we refer to insurance companies like New Fed Insurance LLC. Actually, we have an affiliate business arrangement with, and my sister runs that company, and she does a very good job. She's the person that if something happens insurance-wise, you're going to call her, and she's going to lead you right through it. The Geicos of the world, and you're not going to get that same customer service. So just finishing up on our book, right? So goal setting strategies and keeping score. So really, we already talked about goal setting. We talked about reverse engineering. What do you want to get out of real estate? And then you reverse engineer it. And then keeping score is, every time you have a mortgage, banks are going to ask you, what's your financial statement? I need a financial statement from you. So we show you how to set up your financial statement, because what people don't realize when they first get in is how to keep score, which is a profit and loss and a net worth financial statement. You want to be able to understand your financial statement. You want to be able to review that financial statement once a year. Some people do it once a month, but once a year is plenty. And your net worth, you want to know what you're worth. And it's a very simple strategy. What you have for assets could be stocks, bonds, mutual funds, real estate, whatever you have for assets, bank accounts, 401ks, retirement accounts, and what you have for debts. That could be mortgages. That could be, mostly mortgages, or maybe you leverage an account. Maybe you have a contingent liability versus a non-contingent liability. So these are things that you can actually download. I basically just gave you a standard financial statement in the book, but you'll be able to go to briandamingo.com and get a more sophisticated one as you need. And we'll be putting those up on the website very shortly. And that's it. I think that's really the synopsis of the book. And if anybody got anything information out of this, or they'd like me to see me add anything, this is our first publication, which will be finalized in the next few weeks, and it will be up on Amazon. It'll be up on my website. You can download it from brianDAmico.com. And if you're a realtor, loan officer, or you want to learn more about this stuff, just give me a call, or email us at info@newfed.com. Again, brianDAmico.com. And like we like to say.
And the name of the book for our listeners?
Real Estate Riches. Take the first step and buy your first home. And again, Easy Money New England. Every week we come to you with money-making opportunities and money-saving ideas. And like we always like to say, there's no such thing as easy money. Thank you.
Join us next time for more Easy Money New England on the United Podcast Network.
The views and opinions expressed by the hosts, guests, or callers of this program do not necessarily reflect the opinions of the Studio 21 Podcast Cafe, the United Podcast Network, its partners, or affiliates.